The title has got a kind of X in it, the last X years. And the reason for that is because as we get further and further away from the 2016 moment, I wanted that to be reflected in the title. The piece is a portal. It's a digital work where you enter into a space where you're hearing the kind of voices, recollections, memories, testimonies, rants, thoughts, ideas of dozens of people. And it takes the sort of shape of almost like talk radio. But instead of it being predominantly the host, it's predominantly the people kind of calling in, so to speak.
You know, when like the Brexit vote happened and everyone was talking about, like, you know, people, particularly working class people in the north being...
Yeah, people's kind of inner world on a loop. It goes on for a week and then it resets. The words appear one by one on the screen. They're also spoken, so you hear each of the individuals. They're all anonymised as they tell their particular story or give their particular opinion. We've got about close to 500 separate clips, all taken from the interviews that I did. And these have all been tagged according to what they're about. And then we have another repository which is thousands of headlines from the last 9 years or so that relate to similar topics. They relate to Brexit, they relate to referendum, but they also relate to topics that were important at that time. So immigration, for example, would be a really big one. And the site pairs these together. And I wanted to move away from trying to impose some sort of organising principle other than let's hear people. Let's not filter people into particular groups according to sex and race and gender and what cereals they consume and what toothpaste they buy, because that to me was the reductive part of all of this. We're seeing the outcome of what happens when you do that. I wanted this to be completely different to the functional, almost utilitarian use of the internet that's become really dominant. I wanted it to be completely different.
All they hadn't really had much turnout at the AV referendum for PR in 2011. So I just I had no idea that it would go Brexit, and then feeling just
I was disturbed by how the referendum had been massaged by certain large tech companies. I found that whole story of Cambridge Analytica really troubling. So I wanted to engage with that as well. I wanted to sort of engage with what it means to take people's experiences and data and who they are and what they're about, and to use it or to represent it or to regurgitate it in some way that they hadn't themselves even thought about or intended. But rather than do it in the kind of manipulative way of, you know, trying to massage referendums or elections, I wanted to do it in a way that allowed for a multitude of perspectives.
You know, living in really poor conditions and decided they might try to come to the UK, Dublin.
It's not about right and wrong. It's not about which side was correct and which was incorrect. It's about how do we remember it? How do we talk about it? That kind of reflective side is what I'm focusing on. I'm not trying to push anybody's buttons. I'm much more interested in the form of engagement that we take when it comes to each other and when it comes to issues that affect all of our lives. Like, what's the form of the engagement? I'm not saying that I have an answer for it, but what I am saying is that we're not going to get an answer if we continue down this horrifying rabbit hole that we're in of hyper-personalisation, hyper-polarisation. It's not going to work, this kind of like postmodern nightmare that we've found ourselves in. So I don't give a grand narrative, but I also don't propose that things are completely relative either. What I'm trying to create is a space where we enter a different kind of engagement. And that's what's difficult about the piece, I think. Interestingly, the 2016 moment, I think, created a set of new identities that have now stuck. And these identities feel very artificial. Just because you voted Brexit, it doesn't actually tell you very much about that person's views. It just tells you that for a whole host of reasons, They were more convinced by the Leave campaign. And the same thing with being a Remainer. Personally, I found myself lumped in with people with whom I profoundly disagree. If the modus operandi of today, if the thing that we're all used to is having our buttons pressed, where's the space for going back and reflecting? Where's the space for kind of asking yourself why you thought what you thought? Why do you think what you think?
Well, Brexit, of course, wasn't finalised. It was a fudge.
It probably will try a lot of people's patience. I don't know how long people will spend listening to other people, but that's the point. It's not easy, it's not straightforward. It's supposed to be creating a space where you have to think about that.